Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to create a window to the beach card. I'm going to use this new Vista View window die from Spellbinders, and I'm also going to be using the Botanical solarium die. Now the window view or the Vista View window die creates a beautiful window, and you can use the outside edge of the window to create the window element that I'm going to put on the front of the card. And then you can also use just the inner part to just cut out those window panes. And I'm going to do that on the card front. I love the fact that this has a shelf to put under the window, and you can also have a window box to put your plants in. So you have a lot of options. I'm doing a top folding note card here, and the sizes are 4¼ by 5½. I did a blue one for the outside of the card, and I did a one for the inside of the card that's a little bit smaller. That one, the finished size is 4 inches by 5¼ So for the front of the card, I'm taking my window die, just the insert part, and I'm just going to cut out those window panes. I already created my window for the front of the card, so that is ready to go. And I did layer a few pieces of cardstock together so that that window has some dimension to it. When I go to glue it to the front of the card, I want to make sure that everything matches. So I'm taking that insert and I'm taping it inside, and then I'm going to take a pencil and just make a little mark around different areas of that window, just so that I know what is going to be visible in the window. Those pencil marks can be removed afterwards and erased, so they're not a permanent thing. And I just did a few registration marks, and that's just going to help me to stamp the image that I want in here. I'm using the Hero Arts Color Layering Waves die. I thought it would be really nice to have this window face out to a beach. And I love the fact that these color layering dies, you've got so many opportunities for them. You can do them in whatever shades you want to. And they also have a few sentiments with them. They're some of my favorite stamps to stamp with. I'm going to stamp a few times just to build up that color. And you can stamp it as much or as little as you want, just depending on the shade that you want and the brightness of the colors that you want. Now that I'm done the first layer, I'm going to match up the second layer. And the easiest way to match these ones up is they've got a straight line at the top. So I just match that up. The waves themselves don't match at the bottom, and it's going to get progressively darker. So the first color of distress ink that I used was Tumbled Glass. This one here is Mermaid Lagoon. And then I'm going to use some Uncharted Mariner for the darkest color. And once again, I'm stamping each one a couple times just to deepen that color. And I'm also using a stamp pressure tool just to get some even pressure while I'm stamping. It just makes it really nice and easy. It glides onto the top part of that Misti really, really easily and makes stamping a breeze. So once again, I'm stamping it multiple times just to deepen that ink color. Now, one of the past times I created with this stamp set, I created a mask for the waves so that I could do some ink blending for the beach. Now, I just keep that mask with that stamp set because anytime I want to use it, I'm going to be using it with that stamp set. It's just done with a simple post-it note, so it doesn't need to be anything fancy. Once I'm done with it, I'll put it back in the stamp set, and I just keep reusing that for as many times as it holds up. Then I chose a sentiment from the stamp set, and I'm going to put that on the inside of the card as well. Now, I did a double inside for this, or an insert card for this card. Firstly, because I wanted to be able to see a scene through that window, and then you can also flip that up and put your message in there. You don't have to be able to see, or that way you're not going to see the writing through the window. For the clouds, or for the sky, I have the Hero Arts Color Layering Cloud Stencil, and I had a brain fart here. I decided to ink blend it in Lost Shadow, and it wasn't until I lifted up the stencil that I kind of realized what I did. Someone was talking to me at the moment, so I wasn't really paying too close of attention. I didn't really want the sky to be gray. I wanted it to be blue. So I'm going to put that stencil right back down, and then I'm going to take some Mermaid Lagoon, I think, or Tumbled Glass. I'm going to ink blend it. I do the Tumbled Glass, ink blend it, and then I'm going to go in with Mermaid Lagoon and make it a little bit darker around the outside edges. So it is still going to have a bit of a gray tone. It's just going to give it a bit of a different tone from the water, but it is also going to make it blue looking rather than having a gray sky. And by just doing that Mermaid lagoon on the outside of it, it just gives it a little bit more depth and dimension. This part is not visible on the inside of the window. It just looks nicer when you're looking at it when you open up the card and look at it there. With this insert done, I'm going to tuck that to the side to put into my card later. And one thing I forgot to mention is I have a grip mat on the inside of my Misti, and that's what made it really easy to place that stencil as well as the card base in place. It just holds it there, made it really, really easy while I was stamping as well as while I was stenciling. Before I forget, I need to erase any of those pencil lines that are visible. Most of them are barely even visible. I just happen to know that they're there. And here's a little sneak peek of what you're going to see in that window. So once again, tucked it to the side. Here's my window that I have previously made. The top layer of my cardstock I did with glossy alcohol ink cardstock. I wanted the window and the trim as well as the shelf to look like trim that is painted with glossy paint. So I chose to use the glossy cardstock for that. You don't necessarily need to do this. You could do it with just plain white cardstock, but I really like the different look in the texture. And then also between the layers of my cardstock building up that window, I have a piece of acetate in there just to give it a little bit more authenticity. Making it look a little bit more like window panes. Anytime I glue something down, I put an acrylic block on there just to hold everything in place and free up my hands for the next step. Now, you saw me glue that shelf on here. Now, one thing to note is I should have glued that shelf a little bit lower, or I should have made my plants a little bit smaller. And at this point, I didn't really even realize it until I get to the end where I start to put it together. So just so you know, if you have plants that are this tall, it's going to block out some of that view in that window. So either make your shelf shorter or choose some of the plants from the Botanical solarium die set that's a little bit shorter. I liked these because they were nice and full, and I thought they'd be nice to blend and they would look nice and lush in those pots, but it does cover up about half of that window. So just keep that in mind if you're going to create a card like this, similar to this, the same as this, that those plants will block some of your view. So either put that shelf down a little bit or choose shorter plants. So before I put my plants onto the front of my card, I'm going to glue them into the pot. I took some peeled paint distress ink and I ink blended right from the bottom of the plant just to give it a little bit more shadow. I die cut all of these pieces out of cardstock scraps, so I have a few shades of each one. Any of the darker shades, I'm putting it towards the back of the plant just to give it a little bit more shadow, a little bit more depth, and make it look a little bit deeper, give it some dimension. For all three of them, I chose 3 different sprigs to put in my pot. I wanted them to be nice and lush and full. You don't necessarily have to use this many, but I like the look of them. And personally, I don't have a green thumb. This is the best I can do when it comes to plants. They don't stay alive on me. So I love the fact that I can make some green plants that are nice and full and lush and have them stay that way. So while those plants are drying, I'm just going to put the insert to my card, glue it in, and I'm gluing everything with Barely Art glue. It's a nice liquid glue. I have it in a fine tip bottle, and that fine tip makes it really easy to get into small areas as well as larger areas. After that insert has dried for a few minutes, I can put my plants onto my front. And here's where you can see that those plants are really hiding the ocean part of that scene. So by putting that shelf down lower or making smaller plants, that would have solved that problem. I have a tiny little butterfly here. This is from the Botanical solarium die set, and it was cut out of some rainbow foil that I did for another card. I'm not sure if that video has shown up already on my YouTube or if it's coming. I didn't think to look at that ahead of time, but I wanted to have something like a little pop of color, and I thought that butterfly would be perfect for it. It's also foil, so it's got another different texture that looks great on the front of the card. These little labels that I'm putting on the front of the pots are also from that Botanical solarium die, and I think they're meant to be used as little picks inside pots, but I thought they would look nice as little labels on the front here. So here is the finished card. I absolutely love that window and all of the possibilities of things you can put in the window. Here I have it from the inside looking out, but you could easily do it from the outside looking in and have a little home scene inside there. And I think that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you have a fantastic day.